The silence came first, the kind that presses against the ears and makes the heart pound louder than it should, the kind that warns a man that his life has already shifted before he has even stepped outside his door. 200 warriors stood along the fence line as the sun lifted itself over the plains, their painted faces catching the pale morning light, red and black and white markings, frozen in expressions that offered no threat yet promised no mercy. Not one of them moved. Not one of them spoke. They simply watched. Malachi Brooks through the small cabin window as he stood inside with a coffee cup clenched in both hands, his fingers trembling so badly that the dark liquid rippled dangerously, close to the rim. Yesterday he had been nobody at all, just a quiet rancher living alone on a stretch of land so isolated that weeks could pass without another human voice breaking the wind. He was a man who had never kissed a woman, never known the weight of another body close to his own, never needed to understand the customs of the native tribes who rode these endless plains as freely as the storms themselves. Today he was the center of something vast and incomprehensible, something that stared back at him with 200 pairs of unblinking eyes, something that had begun with nothing more than his jacket and a woman's grateful smile. The memory of the storm rose unbidden in his mind, as vivid as if thunder still rolled overhead, as if rain still lashed the ground outside his door. It had come without warning the previous evening, turning a clear sky black as spilled ink, sending sheets of rain across his homestead with such force that the earth itself seemed to shudder. Malachi had been checking his horses in the small corral, working by habit and instinct when he saw her. A lone figure stumbled through the downpour toward his land, her long black hair plastered to her shoulders, her buckskin dress soaked so thoroughly that it clung to her like a second skin. She moved as though she were fighting against more than just the weather. Each step deliberate but heavy, burdened by exhaustion that reached deeper than the storm. He had not thought then, not really. He had acted. "Ma'am, you need shelter," he had called, his voice nearly swallowed by the wind and rain as he ran toward her through the mud. She had turned at the sound of him, and even through the curtain of rain he could see her dark eyes were filled with fear. Not fear of him, but fear sharpened by something else entirely. Something that made her glance again and again over her shoulder toward the tree, lying beyond his pasture. "I cannot stay," she had said, her voice barely audible above the thunder, soft and accented in a way he did not recognize, every word careful, measured. "My people will worry." Lightning had split the sky then, illuminating her shivering form in stark white light, and in that instant, Malachi had remembered his mother's voice from long ago, remembered her telling him that kindness given freely was the only thing a man truly owned in this world. Without hesitation, he had pulled off his thick wool jacket, the one his father had worn through bitter winters, the one that still smelled faintly of leather and smoke, and draped it around her shoulders. The moment it settled there, something had changed. She had looked down at the worn fabric as if it were made of gold instead of faded wool, then slowly lifted her gaze back to his face with an intensity that made his heart stumble in his chest. "You would give this to me," she had whispered, disbelief and wonder woven together in her voice. "Just until the storm passes," he had replied, feeling heat rush to his cheeks, embarrassed by his own boldness. "You're freezing." She had pulled the jacket tighter around herself, and for a heartbeat they had stood there in the rain, two strangers sharing something that felt far larger than the simple exchange it appeared to be. Then she had smiled, not the polite smile of courtesy he expected, but something deeper, something that reached into parts of him he had never known existed. "My name is Ayanna," she had said. "Malachi Brooks," he had answered. "I will remember this kindness." "Malachi Brooks," she had told him, pronouncing his name as if each syllable mattered, and then she was gone, disappearing into the darkness and rain before he could offer her his cabin, leaving him alone in the storm with questions he did not yet know how to ask. Now standing in his cabin as 200 warriors watched him in silence, one thought echoed through his mind over and over again, growing louder with every heartbeat. What exactly had he done? The sun climbed higher, burning away the last remnants of mist. But the warriors did not move. Malachi had been watching them for 3 hours now, his breakfast growing cold on the table, his nerves stretched thin by the weight of their presence. They were not threatening him outright, but their sheer number made his blood run cold. 200 men could overrun his homestead in minutes if they chose to, could tear down his fence, burn his cabin, erase him from the plains without leaving more than a smudge of ash behind. He tried to go about his morning routine, feeding the chickens, checking the water trough, moving with deliberate calm, but every step felt watched, examined, judged. The painted faces tracked his movements with unreadable expressions, some carrying bows, others holding long spears, none of them raising a weapon. They stood like living statues, forming a human wall that stretched along the entire length of his property line. As the morning wore on, a new unease settled in his gut when he noticed movement in the distance. More warriors were arriving. Small groups emerged from the rolling hills, their horses moving at a steady, purposeful pace toward his ranch. By midday, what had begun as 200 had grown to nearly 300, filling every gap along his fence until there was no break in their formation. It was then that the truth finally sank in. This was not random. This was not a hunting party that had wandered too close to his land. This was organized, planned, deliberate, and whatever it was about, it had something to do with him. The memory of Ayana's smile returned with painful clarity. The way she had looked at his jacket as if it carried meaning far beyond warmth. The careful way she had spoken his name. The intensity in her eyes when she promised to remember his kindness, his father's. Warnings about the complexities of dealing with native tribes echoed in his mind. Lessons he had half listened to and mostly forgotten. Now, with hundreds of armed warriors on his doorstep, he wished he had paid closer attention. Around noon, movement near the fence drew his eye. One warrior, taller than the rest and wearing an elaborate feathered headdress, dismounted from his horse and began walking toward the cabin. Unlike the others, his face was not painted for war. His expression was serious but not hostile. His stride confident, the walk of a man accustomed to command. Malachi's hand moved instinctively toward the rifle above his fireplace, then stopped. 300 warriors against one inexperienced rancher made the weapon useless, except to ensure his own death. The man stopped exactly 10 paces from the porch and spoke in clear, unaccented English. Malachi Brooks, it was not a question. The man knew his name. "Yes, sir," Malachi replied, stepping onto the porch despite the way his knees trembled beneath him. "I am Takakota, chief of the Lakota band that travels these lands," the man said. "We have come about the woman." Malachi's heart slammed against his ribs. "What woman?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Takakota's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied Malachi's face with the precision of a man reading tracks in difficult terrain. "The woman you sheltered in the storm," he said. "The woman who now wears your jacket." The word struck Malachi like physical blows. Ayana was still wearing his jacket, but why would that matter to an entire tribe? "She was cold," Malachi said weakly. "I was just being neighborly." Something flickered across the chief's weathered features, an expression Malachi could not read. When Takakota spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made the air feel heavier. "Young rancher, do you know who she is?" The question hung between them like smoke from a distant fire. Malachi stared at the chief's face, searching for answers he did not have. "She said her name was Ayana," he replied. "That's all I know." Takakota's expression darkened. "That is not all you need to know." He gestured toward the assembled warriors. "Each of these men would die for her without hesitation. They have ridden for 2 days, leaving their families behind, because word reached us that she had been seen with a white rancher, wearing his jacket." The blood drained from Malachi's face. "I don't understand," he said. "It was just a jacket." "Just a jacket," Takakota repeated, his tone making Malachi's skin crawl. "Tell me, what did she do when you offered it to her?" The memory rose sharp and clear. "She seemed surprised," Malachi admitted, "like she wasn't used to kindness from strangers." Takakota nodded once. "She is my daughter." The world tilted. "The chief's daughter?" Malachi swallowed hard. "Sir, I meant no disrespect," he stammered. "I was just trying to help." "That much is clear," Takakota said. "If you had known who she was, you would never have dared approach her." Malachi's thoughts raced. "What happens now?" he asked. Takakota studied him for a long moment. "That depends," he said. "Why was she alone in the storm? Why did she accept your jacket? And why did she not come home last night?" The last question hit like ice water. "What do you mean she didn't come home?" Malachi asked. "She left our camp 2 days ago to gather herbs for her grandmother's medicine," Takakota said. "She should have returned before the storm. When our scouts found her horse this morning, Still wearing your jacket?" She was nowhere to be found. Malachi's legs nearly gave out. "You think something happened to her?" "I think," Takakota said, his voice edged with danger, "that the last person to see my daughter alive was you." The accusation hung heavy between them as hundreds of eyes bore into Malachi's back. "She left on her own," Malachi protested. "I offered her shelter." Takakota's gaze never wavered. "There is one way to prove your innocence," he said. The word sent a chill through Malachi. "You will help us find her." The statement stunned him into silence. "You know which direction she went," Takakota continued. "And you know why she was running." "Running," Malachi echoed. Takakota stepped closer. "My daughter is the finest rider in our tribe. For her to be caught on foot means something drove her from her horse." The pieces clicked into place as Malachi remembered her fear, the way she had watched the trees. "She was scared," he admitted. "But not of me." "Exactly," Takakota said. "Someone was following her." Malachi swallowed. "Why me?" he asked. "Because whoever took her will not expect a white rancher to hunt with us," Takakota replied. "And if we do not find her?" Malachi asked quietly. Takakota's eyes turned cold. "Then you will learn why my people have survived on these plains for 1,000 years." Silence followed, heavy and final. Malachi looked past the chief to the waiting warriors, to the lives balanced on the edge of what came next, and knew he had already crossed a line he could never step back over. "When do we leave?" he asked. "Now," Takakota said. Malachi turned toward the stable, his hands shaking, one thought pounding in his mind, louder than the hooves already beginning to stir outside. Whatever waited for them beyond his fence line. This was no longer about a jacket or a storm. It was about life and death, and he was already too deep to turn back. Within minutes, the quiet routine of Malachi Brooks's ranch was replaced by the heavy rhythm of preparation, leather creaking, horses snorting, the low murmur of warriors speaking in urgent tones as they readied themselves to ride. Malachi moved as if in a dream, his body obeying commands his mind barely processed as he saddled his horse with shaking hands and retrieved the rifle Takakota had instructed him to bring. The weight of the weapon across his back felt different now, no longer a tool for hunting game, but a symbol of the danger he was about to ride into. When he mounted up, he found himself riding alongside Takakota at the head of a column of 50 warriors, their formation tight and disciplined, their expression set with grim purpose. The remaining men stayed behind near the ranch, ostensibly to guard the area, though Malachi could not shake the feeling that their presence also served as a reminder that escape was not an option if fear overcame him. They moved out across the plains in near silence, hooves thudding softly against the damp earth left behind by the storm, the land stretching wide and unforgiving in every direction. The trail began exactly where Malachi remembered seeing Ayana vanish into the rain, the ground still marked by subtle signs he had never learned to notice. Takakota dismounted almost immediately, crouching low and studying the mud and broken grass with the focus of a scholar reading sacred text. Malachi watched in awe as the chief traced invisible stories from impressions that meant nothing to him. Despite the rain that had fallen through the night, Takakota found what he needed. "She went this way," he said at last, pointing toward a rocky outcropping half a mile beyond the fence line, but she was not alone. "How can you tell?" Malachi asked. "Her steps are uneven," Takakota replied. She favored her left leg, injured, and here another set of tracks. Larger boots, following behind her. The image formed instantly in Malachi's mind, vivid and terrible. Ayana limping through the storm, driven forward by fear. Someone relentless on her trail. As they rode deeper into the wilderness, tension settled over the group like a living thing. Conversations fell silent when Malachi glanced toward the warriors behind him. Several men exchanged looks that lingered too long, their expressions guarded, calculating. The air felt charged like the moment before lightning struck. "Tell me about the men who asked to court your daughter," Malachi said quietly, leaning closer to Takakota. The chief's jaw tightened. "Kichi rides with us today," he said. Young, impulsive. He believes skill with a bow entitles him to whatever he desires. Ayana rejected him openly. Malachi scanned the riders, but could not tell which one Kichi was. They all looked equally capable of violence to his untrained eye. The second is Chaitan, Takakota continued. Older, ambitious. He believes marriage to my daughter would give him claim to leadership when I am gone. Is he here? Malachi asked. No, Takakota replied. He stayed behind at your ranch. The choice felt deliberate, and Malachi felt a chill run through him. The third is Mato, Takakota said. He has a temper that burns hot and fast. He does not accept rejection. Before Malachi could ask more, Takakota raised his hand sharply, signaling the column to halt. He dismounted again, his expression darkening as he examined the ground. What is it? Malachi asked. Blood, Takakota said. The single word tightened Malachi's chest. Dark stains marked the rocks, partially washed away by rain but unmistakable. Not enough to kill, Takakota added, rising slowly. Enough to weaken. He scanned the surrounding terrain, eyes narrowing. The trail splits here. Malachi saw it then. 3 distinct paths diverging from a single point. Which way? He asked. Before Takakota could answer, a young warrior with intricate tattoos along his arms spoke up. Chief, we should split our forces. Cover all trails. The suggestion sounded reasonable, but something in the man's tone set Malachi's nerves on edge. That is Kichi, Takakota murmured. No, the chief said aloud after a long pause. We stay together. But Chief, Kichi protested. If we split, Takakota cut in. His voice sharp with authority. We do exactly what whoever took my daughter wants. They want us scattered and blind. Silence followed, thick and accusing. Malachi watched faces closely now, noticing flickers of frustration and unease that confirmed Takakota's suspicions. We follow the trail toward the river, the chief decided. It bears the most weight. As they rode, Malachi studied Kichi. The young warrior rode near the front, jaw clenched, eyes darting ahead and back. Behind him, whispers passed between other men, their voices low and tense. When they reached the river, swollen and fast from the storm, tracking became harder. Takakota dismounted once more, spending long minutes reading signs Malachi could barely see. She crossed here, the chief said at last. Not willingly. How do you know? Malachi asked. Her steps are forced, and there are fresh horse tracks on the far bank. The meaning was clear. This had been planned. Kichi suddenly called out from upstream. Chief, I found something. They rode to him, and Malachi's heart sank as he recognized the object hanging from a low branch. His jacket, the wool coat he had given Ayana. She left it as a sign, Takakota said softly. My daughter is clever. But Malachi noticed something else, a piece of bark tucked into a pocket. There's a message, he said. Takakota removed it carefully. The symbols etched into it drained the color from his face. What does it say? Malachi asked. It says the daughter pays for the father's crimes, Takakota replied. Sunset tomorrow or she dies. The revelation shifted everything. This was not a reckless abduction. It was calculated. Revenge. Takakota explained the dispute with Akacheta, the challenge. The mercy that had been spared and sworn vengeance that followed. You think he took her? Malachi asked. I think he had help, Takakota said, his gaze sweeping over the warriors. Someone told him her movements. Malachi noticed several men exchanging looks of recognition. Why give so much time? He asked. Because he wants humiliation, Takakota said. He wants me to break. The truth settled heavily between them. This was a trap designed to destroy Takakota's authority. As they pressed on, Malachi's unease grew. If Akacheta had inside help, then the rescue itself might be leading them into danger. The warning became reality within the hour. As the trail narrowed into a canyon, arrows rained down from above, war cries echoing off stone. Chaos erupted. Takakota's warriors scattered for cover as Malachi ducked behind a boulder. In the confusion, he saw Kichi standing exposed, signaling to the attackers with deliberate gestures. Takakota! Malachi shouted. Kichi is with them. The chief turned, fury flashing across his face. In one smooth motion, he loosed an arrow that struck Kichi in the shoulder, dropping him to the canyon floor. The ambush faltered, confusion spreading through the attackers. Amid the clash, Malachi spotted movement high on the canyon wall, a flash of buckskin among the rocks. She's up there, he yelled. Takakota glanced up, his face grim. Too exposed. Malachi did not wait. He broke from cover and began climbing, fingers scraping against stone, muscles burning. The climb felt endless, fear and determination driving him upward. When he reached the ledge, he found Ayana bound but alive, her eyes widening with relief at the sight of him. He cut her bonds quickly. "My father," she whispered once the gag was gone. "Kitchi betrayed us." "I know," Malachi said. Escape seemed impossible until Ayana revealed a hidden path. She led him down a treacherous route that brought them behind Akacheta's position. From there they could see the enemy leader directing his men. "Can you use that rifle?" Ayana asked. "Not well," Malachi admitted. "Then give it to me." She took the weapon with practiced ease and fired a single shot that struck Akacheta in the thigh, dropping him and throwing his men into chaos. Takakota seized the moment, rallying his warriors and overwhelming the ambushers. The fight ended abruptly. The conspirators captured Kitchi among them. As dust settled, Malachi stood beside Ayana, surrounded by warriors who now looked at him with respect. Takakota approached, pride evident in his eyes. "You risked your life for my daughter," he said. "That is courage." Ayana held out the jacket. "You should have this back." "Keep it," Malachi replied. "You earned it." She smiled. The same smile that had changed everything during the storm, and Malachi felt the weight of the man. He had become settled into place as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The canyon slowly fell quiet, the echoes of battle fading into the wind as the last of Akacheta's warriors laid down their weapons and stepped back with hands raised, their defiance drained away by the sight of their wounded leader and the unbroken line of Takakota's men closing in around them. Dust hung in the air, stinging Malachi's eyes as his breathing finally slowed enough for him to feel the pain in his scraped hands and aching arms, reminders of the climb that had nearly broken him. Ayana stood beside him, steadier now, the shock of captivity giving way to the calm strength that seemed woven into her very being. Takakota approached them through the scattered rocks, his expression carved from stone. But when his gaze fell on his daughter, something softened in his eyes, something deeply human that Malachi had not seen before. He reached out, resting a hand on Ayana's shoulder, his voice low but steady as he spoke her name, and for a moment the world narrowed to that single reunion. Father and daughter reunited in the aftermath of betrayal and bloodshed. The traitors were bound and brought forward, Kitchi among them, his shoulders soaked with blood, his eyes avoiding Takakota's gaze as if shame weighed heavier than his wound. The chief did not speak to him yet, did not need to. Judgment would come later, in the way of his people, witnessed by those who mattered. For now, Ayana was alive, and that truth overshadowed everything else. As warriors moved to secure the prisoners and tend to the wounded, Malachi stood awkwardly at the edge of the gathering, suddenly unsure of his place now that the danger had passed. 3 days earlier, he had been a man who avoided conflict by nature, content to live quietly with his land and his animals, untouched by the struggles of the wider world. Now he stood in the center of a story that would be told and retold, a story that had pulled him into something far larger than himself. Takakota turned toward him, studying him with a look that held both calculation and respect. "You climbed where others would not," the chief said. "You acted when fear would have frozen many men." Malachi shrugged weakly, still trying to understand how he had found the courage to do what he did. "I just couldn't leave her," he said. "Not after everything." Ayana looked at him then, her dark eyes searching his face, and in that look Malachi saw gratitude, trust, and something else he did not yet have words for. She held out the jacket again, the wool stained now with dirt and blood. "You gave this to me when I had nothing but the storm," she said softly. "It protected me when others meant me harm." "Keep it," Malachi replied, the words coming easily, naturally. "It's yours now." Takakota inclined his head, a gesture heavy with meaning. "Any man who would risk his life for my daughter has earned a place among my people," he said. "You are welcome in our camp, Malachi Brooks, now and always." The declaration carried weight far beyond hospitality. It was acceptance, recognition, a bridge between two worlds Malachi had never imagined crossing. As the group began the long ride back toward the plains, the mood shifted from tension to solemn relief. Ayana rode beside her father, her posture strong despite the ordeal she had endured, while Malachi followed close behind, the events of the past day replaying in his mind in fragments of fear, courage, and impossible choices. The warriors spoke quietly among themselves now, their glances toward Malachi no longer suspicious but respectful, acknowledging the role he had played in saving the chief's daughter and exposing the betrayal that threatened them all. When the familiar outline of his ranch finally came into view, the sun was sinking low, painting the sky in deep shades of gold and red that stretched endlessly across the horizon. 200 warriors still stood along the fence line, just as they had that morning. But the silence that greeted Malachi now felt entirely different. Where before there had been tension and unspoken threat, now there was celebration held in check by discipline and tradition. Voices rose in low chants, hands struck shields, and the atmosphere pulsed with relief and triumph. Malachi dismounted slowly, his legs stiff, his body exhausted in a way he had never known, and for a moment he simply stood there, taking in the sight of his once quiet homestead, transformed into a gathering place for an entire people. Takakota dismounted as well, addressing his warriors with words Malachi could not understand but felt nonetheless, the cadence heavy with honor and resolution. When the chief finished, he turned back to Malachi one final time. "This land has changed you," he said, "and you have changed what happened upon it." Malachi looked around at the faces watching him, at Ayana standing proudly among her people, still wearing his jacket as if it belonged exactly where it was. He understood then that the life he had known before the storm was gone. In its place was something uncertain, dangerous, and alive with possibility. He was no longer the invisible rancher living alone on the edge of the plains. He was a man who had faced fear and chosen to act. A man whose kindness had set events in motion that tested his courage and reshaped his destiny. As night settled over the land and the warriors began to disperse, Malachi felt a quiet certainty take root in his chest. Giving away a simple jacket during a storm had cost him nothing he could not afford. Yet it had given him more than he had ever dreamed. Possible. Connection. Purpose. A place in a story larger than himself. And as Ayana met his gaze across the fading light, her smile mirroring the one that had first captured his heart in the rain, Malachi knew that whatever paths lay ahead, he would no longer walk them alone.